before lunch here, going to hear from Food Bank. From the Vermont Food Bank, that is, on the bill that we passed last year, creating at the state level the Vermonters Feeding Vermonters program. Was that H-167?
I think it was.
Yeah. Good. So that was, we passed it last year. It was signed into law. It went into effect immediately, or July 1st. So we've got some months behind us now, and be curious to know what's happened so far.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, I'm John Sales, CEO at the Vermont Food Bank. I live here in Montpelier, and happy to be here. As the chair said, sorry, that's a look at my face to log on. That's okay. Last year, and I want to thank the committee for all the work you did on H-167. We're really grateful for that and getting it through the whole process and having the governor enthusiastically signing it. We immediately started conversations with the Agency of Agriculture on a contract, and that was signed for effective expected date of July 1st. And the grant agreement sets out that there will be a first report, and then the agency it was $500,000 that was appropriated for this program. And so initially $200,000 through the grant agreement came to the food bank. This was in response to invoices that we provided for expenditures for Vermont products that are in compliance with the legislation. There is an interim report due on no later than February 23rd. In fact, I know in the next 2 weeks, my team is meeting again with Abby Willard to talk about the interim report. And then no later than August 31st, the final report. That interim report, there would be another $200,000 unlocked, and the final report, the final $100,000, about $500,000. There we go. Some of you, we do have a new member of the committee who wasn't here and didn't hear all about Vermonters Feeding Vermonters. So just quickly, the program goals and strategy was to purchase a diversity of fresh, nutritious, and locally produced foods by the food bank, to pay a fair price to our farmers, our Vermont farmers, provide farmers with large-scale contracts that provide them with increasing security and predictability of sales volumes and prices. All that is negotiated ahead of time. And then to provide funding to Vermont Food Bank partners, some of our food shelf and meal site partners around the state, who can then create partner relationships with local smaller farms that it doesn't make sense for the food bank. They can't deliver pallet quantities. And then the local partners can then purchase fresh local food directly from those smaller farmers. And then also seeking out creative partnerships with underserved communities and farmers to make sure that we're meeting the food needs of all the different populations in Vermont. So some populations have different food needs, and we want to make sure that, for instance, in Chittenden County, there's some farmers who are immigrants who grow vegetable types that are really prized by the Somali communities and the other immigrant communities in Vermont. And so we want to make sure we're making that available also. And then the three components of the program, as I mentioned: large scale, wholesale, direct purchase by the food bank, and then grants to our partners, and then those specialty grants for specialty crops. So far this year, as of July 1st, we did draw down the initial $200,000. And as of between July 1st and October 6th, we spent $507,000 on local produce, and that's been distributed. That came from 17 farms. And because of the amount of money, we didn't use any of that money for the grant program. We've used some of our general funding at the food bank for the grant program. We work mostly with 17 larger farms to spend that $500,000. And that was a total of 176 pounds of food that was purchased. I've got a list of farms if people are interested in seeing that.
And when you say the grant program, you mean grants to your partner organization?
Grants to our partner organizations who then purchase Vermont grown food from Vermont growers and distribute that at no charge. So in addition to that $500,000, the food bank also has a budget for this program. And since July 1st through today, basically, we've spent about really close to $900,000. We have another $400,000 in purchases under contract. So one of the handouts that I listed, there's two handouts. One is for the food banks, the one on top. Food bank's request for budget adjustment. As you might recall, last year when we talked about this program, the food bank's request was $2 million. And we have a clear path to being able to spend that much money. And the legislature funded $500,000. So we're going to go in budget adjustment and see if we can convince people to invest another $1.5 million in the program. We do have because it's kind of late in the year, right? We've got the growing season just starting and just getting up to speed when the state's fiscal year ends. We do have a plan that would allow us to spend down that $1.5 million, assuming we would get that in the budget adjustment.
Between now and June.
Between now and the end of June. Okay. Correct. And the second handout is the food bank's FY27 request, which is for $5 million, $2 million for Vermonters Feeding Vermonters, which is what's under the jurisdiction and of the interest of this committee, and then $2 million for support for our local network. And that's kind of more other kinds of food, not Vermont grown food, and grants to support our partners' other needs, things like refrigeration and any kind of capital needs they have for their buildings. And then $1 million to our responsive readiness program, which I think we've talked about before, allows the food bank to integrate better with emergency management and be prepared really at all times for the kinds of natural and man-made disasters that we've been seeing in the last few years.
How much did you receive this year in November in emergency funds?
That was $250,000.
$250,000.
And that was, I think the e-board made their decision on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, and by Friday, all of that money had been distributed to food shelves. So that was a direct pass through, all those dollars.
And that was like in 4th, 5th of November?
It was during the shutdown.
Yeah, during the shutdown. So
Yeah.
when the checks didn't come out November 2nd.
That's right. It was I think it was November 7th, was the date that we got the money out. And then it was the 17th or so when they released the SNAP funds.
Well, thank you for being an organization that could handle that and flip it as fast as you did.
Yeah.
Because it helped people.
You're welcome. We are meeting as we meet with the Agency of Agriculture, we're talking about perhaps trying to accelerate the drawdown, seeing as we've already spent the entire amount of the legislative appropriation. So, they've been great to work with. And even if we don't even if we're not able to accelerate the drawdown, because we've already spent the money, we'll be easily able to invoice that throughout. I just think that there's a lot of opportunity here, both for Vermont farms and for our neighbors accessing that food. This is one of the key provisions of the Vermont Food Security Roadmap, is making sure that our agricultural community is strong and able to feed Vermonters. And I think this is a great investment by the state for not only supporting our farmers and giving them the opportunity to have some certainty and a fair price for their product, but also create new customers in Vermonters who might not otherwise be able to afford their food.
Interesting to see how those 17 farms.
17 farms.
Yeah, how they're distributed geographically and across types of farms. What
Well, I can give you just some examples. So actually, Representative Burt isn't here, but he's on the list.
apples?
Apples, that was about $14,000 in purchases. Champlain Orchards, another. Chappelle's Potatoes, Deep Root Organic Cooperative, that was about $61,000 we spent with them. And that's a lot of mixed vegetables from a number of different farms. They're great to work with. Evening Song Farm, Harlow Farm, about $22,000. Intervale Center, Jericho Settlers Farm, who's been a farm we've worked with both as a vendor and as a donor for many, many years. Some of the other bigger ones, Maple Meadow Farm, as you all know, big egg producer here in Vermont. We purchase all of our eggs from Maple Meadow Farm. So Maple
Addison County.
Addison County, thank you. Yeah. That was $137,000. Miller Milk, we purchased milk and cream from Miller, and Sam Mazel's farm also, just some examples. So we do actually make an effort to be geographically diverse also and hit farms in different parts of the state.
Did I? Kingdom Potatoes, that would be Matt Mahan over.
Yes.
Hickstone?
He's on the list too.
Yeah.
So that was about
Yeah.
$62,000 we spent with him.
That helped him after 23 and 24, I'm sure.
Representative O'Brien?
John, how do you agree on a price with these, say, 17 farms? Is it what they're getting from Hannaford's or the food hubs or whatever?
Yeah, we do negotiate, and we negotiate for a fair wholesale price. So we are looking at comparables, what they're getting, what they're getting in markets, what they're getting from other wholesale clients. We don't try and kind of use our leverage as a nonprofit to get a lower price, because we think it's really important, especially with local food, to make sure that our farmers are getting the fair value for their crops.
And they all have capacity to say, yeah, this is great.
That's right. And some of them actually over the years have increased their capacity. Lapping Child Farm in particular they grow sweet potatoes exclusively. We buy a lot of sweet potatoes from them, and they have increased their capacity over the years because they know that we're going to be a consistent customer. We're going to be paying a consistent price. Yeah.
They make great sweet potatoes.
They do.
Where are
I
they?
take them, Big Brother.
Yeah, wherever.
Paula?
Paulette, yep.
Yeah, Meadowy Valley.
Yeah.
Other questions? Anything else, John?
I think that's it really for right now.
If you could send Patricia the
I will do that.
documents, yeah, we'll post them.
And we would really like to come in at another time. Love to give you this update on where we are, but also talk more about our asks for the coming year, and also the food security roadmap. And maybe we've got some other folks who are part of the roadmap here too, to talk about the roadmap's agenda for this coming up year.
Good, yeah, I have that on a list of things to try and schedule and then sometime in the next few weeks. Is that, and we'll have Patricia coordinate that, but is that something that would be a good, from your standpoint, a good thing to come in even next week, or would you like a little more time to?
I think maybe a little more time next week. Okay, could be whenever. We can make it work. If you have time, we will make it work.
Yeah, while we do have time before we start getting, bills that we may want to focus on, might make sense. So
We'd love to do that because there are some changes in the legislative priorities for this coming up here.
it's the best contact for that. Okay. Amy, thank you.
Okay, do we send a letter to approach during the BAA of similarly what our request might be?
Yeah, I mean, historically, we've been asked to do that. I'm not entirely sure this year what the procedure is going to be. So appropriations has already met, like in December, which is not the way things usually work, to start the work on the BAA. And I don't know, partly because the finances are a little different this year. So I'm not sure what we're going to be at. We can certainly weigh in regardless of whether we're asked, but to expect.
And for a reminder, the committee did in your budget bill, your budget memo last year, support the entire $2 million appropriation for feeding Vermonters.
What was your BAA ask?
It's 1.5 million
Balance,
balance.
essentially, yeah.
Right, didn't get funded last year.
Yeah.
And that was what the 500,000 that was funded was one time
Correct.
funding, yeah.
Correct.
All right, well, John, thank you. So we'll look for these on our website. And we'll plan to have you back in shortly in
That'd be great.
various capacities.
Next week would be fine if you have time.
Okay,
I mean, we are ready to do it.
good to know. We're going to be back here at 1. So break for lunch. We're going to be back at 1 for a brief committee session before we have to be back on the floor for the State of the State address. And then there is some floor activity on the calendar. So we won't be back in the committee at the end of the day. So that's the rest of the day. I'm going to pass around, if you would just, everyone take a look at this draft of the updated committee chart. Make sure your name is spelled correctly, or as you want it to be spelled, I guess. Yeah, and then when it gets back to the end, we'll.
Not correct, but it's how I want it.
Well, maybe you should change to a nickname since there's 2 Johns.
Oh, yes, okay, well, that's already,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's old news.
yeah,
Well, other than that, it's correctly spelled.
okay.